Hi everyone, thank you for joining us again today. This is On Air with LHAG. It is litigation week at our firm, and we have with us today Mr. Lambert Rasa-Ratnam, who is a partner in our dispute resolution practice group. Welcome, Mr. Lambert. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Alina. Please call me Lambert.
Sure. So, Lambert, 36 years in practice.
Long time.
Let me paint you a picture of how long it's been. You have been in litigation practice for my entire lifetime and 8 more years.
Wow.
What does it take to do it day in and day out?
I would like to think that there's a very complex formula behind it.
Yeah.
But frankly, you're just going with the tide, you know. And before you know it, it's 36 years. And certainly on my part, in the main, it has been a very fortunate 36 years.
Right. We want to focus a bit more on appeals in today's session. Which would you say is more difficult, representing or acting for the appellant or the respondent?
Well, you can take it at 2 levels, Alina, the theoretical level and the practical level. In terms of the theoretical level, I mean, the theory would have it that it's more difficult if you're the appellant, the burden's on you to show that the judge was plainly wrong. But I emphasize that's the theory of it, because the reality is that it all turns in the facts and the law. So, I mean, you know of appeals being won, you know of appeals being dismissed. In both cases, there is a winner and a loser. It could be the appellant, it could be the respondent. So the reality is, theory aside,
It's all
equally
dependent on the facts
and the law, and equally a challenge, whichever hat you're wearing. Yeah.
Taking a walk down memory lane, do you remember your first appearance before the appellate courts?
Yes. I mean, well, I wouldn't say I remember the first case or the details of the first case, but I do remember in my early years being fortunate to be a junior to my partner in charge, and I did a number of matters with him in the appellate courts. But bear in mind, in those days it was singular, because until 94, 95, there was really one apex court, an appellate court, that was at some point in time called the Supreme Court, and other times the Federal Court. You know?
I assume this would be in the 1980s?
Yes.
How were the courts back then? Where were the courts even located?
Well, nothing like what they are today. I mean, they were in rather rustic buildings, Sultan Abdul Samad,
Right.
which housed the Kuala Lumpur High Court as well as the Federal Court, and then in 94 the Court of Appeal as well, when it was set up. It's a lovely setting.
So all the courts were in one location?
Yes, because of course, I mean, you only had 4 high courts then.
Right.
I mean, much smaller bar, and so the whole ecosystem was quite different. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Jumping forward to current times, I hear that the e-appellate system has been introduced recently.
Indeed, it has for the appellate courts, and
What is your take or experience on e-appellate?
well, last week I was involved in my first e-appellate hearing, and it's not as daunting as it seems.
Okay.
And very clearly, it's the way forward, isn't it?
And you save a lot of paper and trees.
Certainly very environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Let's say, for example, I lose my appeal in the Court of Appeal, and I have a last or a final chance to appeal in the federal court. How tough is that?
Well, I think you can safely say it's a vertical climb, because you have to satisfy quite a stringent test. More often than not, leave is refused. So it's but it's not an automatic right.
Mm-hmm.
You need permission. In everyday speak, that's getting leave to appeal, and that's a big challenge.
Being in litigation for almost 40 years, would you have any tips for young practitioners who are appearing before appellate courts for the first time?
It's really the same skill set you bring, whether you are in the lower courts or the appellate courts, except that in the appellate courts, your focus has to be far sharper, and you also have to make the most of a much more limited time that you have, because the theory is that appeals are rehearings, but the reality is that you only have a fraction of the time you had in the High Court.
Right.
So you've got to make the best of that.
So time management is very, very
Very
important.
important.
Okay.
You know? Yeah. And so I mean, basically, being short, sharp, economical, and to the point, I think, makes it easier for the bench and makes it easier all round, I think. You know?
Right. So now on to the fun part of the show, Lambert.
Yes.
We want to do something called rapid fire session.
Okay.
We want you to answer as many questions as you can within 30 seconds.
Okay. That's quite a challenge.
It's
isn't it?
quite a challenge.
Right.
So are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. So Federer or Nadal?
Federer.
Have you had long hair before?
Yes.
When was that?
In England.
Name of the street you grew up on?
P. Ramlee.
Any sports that you played in school?
Everything, but nothing particularly well.
Morning person or night person?
Both.
The Beatles or Queen?
Beatles.
Talking or texting?
Both. Talking or texting.
Time's up, Lambert, but I will let you answer that question.
Okay. I think talking is far
Talking
more
on the
meaningful.
phone.
Yeah.
Okay. You managed to answer 9 questions in 30 seconds.
Is that a record?
Which is quite a feat. I must give it to you. Well done, Lambert.
Thank you. Thank
So
you,
on that
Alina.
note, I would like to thank you again for coming on the show and speaking to us about your experience, especially with regards to the appellate court. So thank you, Lambert.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. This has been On Air with LHAG. We will see you again next Friday. Bye.
Bye.